I'm gonna win. Why is that, Benjamin? Because it's Tuesday night. What's that gonna do with anything? Because it's Maverick Night in America. Alright, well, it's pushing 9 o'clock. I had to head over. Bye. Good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the Talladega Superspeedway as it plays host to the first playoff race of Season 62 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. The first of 6 playoff races, the first race of the first round. This Amperant Screwdrivers Raceway will determine our total of 13 drivers, 14 drivers, that will be then whittled down to 8 drivers moving into round 2. A lot of your playoff contenders will be looking at this as a must-win situation so they can go into next week worry-free knowing they'll be moving on to the next round of said playoffs. I'm Seth Cole. Was originally going to be joined by Michael Norman in the booth here tonight, but unfortunately, last-minute emergency, he had to not be here tonight, and so I'm flying solo. We're getting ready for what should be an exciting opener to these playoffs. 66 laps of racing at this 2.66 mile super speedway. As mentioned, we ended up having 12 drivers make it into the playoffs via top 12 in the standings. We ended up having a total of 2 drivers make it in via having a victory and being inside of the top 20 in the point standings, and these are those playoff drivers. Now, it does look a little bit odd. It's not exactly where these drivers were in the regular season standings because bonus points came into play based off of the amount of wins they had during the regular season, the amount of positions they were in the point standings garners you bonus points. So all of that coming into play is the mathematics you see here. Grant Wesley, the regular season champion, still has the points lead, but 3 meager points over Brian Schilling, 9 back to Jeremy Jeffries and Jessica Shelton. Chris Emery and Josh Metallic were the 2 drivers that won their way into the playoffs, were outside of the top 12 in points, but inside of the top 20. Metallic, of course, a last-minute winner in last week's regular season finale. Looks like we got a total of 37 drivers taking the green flag here tonight, so a lot of points up for grabs for the playoff contenders who will try and be above that 8th in the standings cut line heading next week, and Mike Mangialardi is going to be the one to lead us to the green flag. He'll be alongside of Chuck McClure. Row 2 is going to find Bob Seminara. He'll be joined by Donnie Garrett. Ron Hagelin will be in row 3 with Glenn Harris. Last week's winner, Josh Metallic, in row 4 with Bob Dixon. And the top 10 will be completed with Jeff Crivello and Graham McDonald. In row 6, we find Keith Bynum and Bernie Mobbs. Joe DeSpirito and Mark Paglia back in row 7. Row 8, the defending champion Jeremy Jeffries and Kelly Causey. Terry Bombard and Greg Lovell back in row 9. Regular season champion Grant Wesley will be back in row 10, completing the top 20 with Randy Waugh. Jessica Shelton's going to be back in row 11 alongside of Rodney Selwins. Row 12 will be Greg Palmer and Cy Jones. Row 13, Bobby Farrell and Brian Schilling. Denny Carroll will be back in row 14 with Hank Middleton. Top 30 completed by Wiley Coke. Good to see him back in the field here tonight. and John Godfrey. Tim Nofsker and Brian Lovell, they're back in row 16. Ulysses Sandoval, Tom Dixon in row 17. Row 18, Billy Elliser and two-time winner Brian Rawson. And bringing up the 37th and final row this evening will be Robert Breedlove. Green flag in the air. We are racing here tonight in the first playoff race of the season. Mike Mangialardi with a bit of a slow start there. The inside line stacked up. That's going to allow Chuck McClure and Donnie Garrett to get an advantage on the top side. We're going to have just a little freeze for a minute here. I want to get the car engines up so that way you can actually hear them as they thunder their way around this super speedway. Chuck McClure made his way into the playoffs via points, still looking for his first win on the season. Donnie Garrett, same situation for him, but he's actually been very consistent the last couple of weeks. Had that little slip up there coming to what was eventually the checkered flag last week, the race ending under caution as he got down in the apron here through the tri-oval, was involved in a wreck and did not garner the finishing position that indicated how well he ran in last week's regular season finale, but looking to start the playoffs right. As Mike Mangialardi, despite that slip-up on the initial start, he and Bob Seminara, Ron Haglund, they've been able to charge back up alongside of Chuck McClure, seeing a little bit of strength out of that inside line that we normally don't see here at Talladega. Normally it's that middle line where the preferred line is. Usually the momentum seems to be there more often than not. Now we start to see it surge ahead just a little bit. McClure again clear of both lanes. Keith Bynum back there looked like he was trying to get something going for a third lane. No takers. He's going to start drifting back. Now he'll pick up, looks like Greg Lovell, and I think that's Greg Palmer up there as well. But that's back somewhere around the 15th, 16th position. For the 14 playoff contenders here tonight, you win, you're into the next round of the playoffs. But we have another 23 drivers that all want to go to victory lane as well. That's one of the interesting things about playoffs in a super speedway series is there's always a bunch of X factors, and usually they outnumber the playoff drivers. I mean, it's almost a 2-to-1 ratio, non-playoff drivers to playoff drivers. However, we've seen in the past, usually it is the playoff drivers, and I think someone just blew up back there. Ulysses Sandoval just went around, and the caution's out. He collected up a couple of other cars, but I thought I saw a plume of smoke as if maybe the engine went south on the 096 there, just as the leaders had crossed the start-finish line. And we will have our first caution of the playoffs here. It officially, I believe, was on lap 3. No, I guess it was on lap 4. The leader had already crossed the line because they are making their way back around here to the official caution. It is frozen field, so you will not see them advance their position here. But they are maintaining between 190 to 195 to make sure they get back here to be able to pick up the pace car in time for when pit road opens. Quite a number of skid marks there heading into turn 1, so this was not just a single car incident. It looked like at least 3, maybe 4 different trails there with those skid marks, and the big question would be, were any of our playoff contenders involved this early on? Tom Dixon, Brian Lovell back here. Apparently it was not an engine failure for the 096, or else we wouldn't probably see him still rolling. Rodney Sullins collected up maybe in this. Billy Elliser. There's Denny Carroll. Now he is one of the playoff contenders. He is, I believe, officially, he's tied for 10th. If we didn't count the ties, I believe he would be 12th in the playoff standings. But I don't see any visible damage on that car, so he might be okay. Hopefully he's okay. Would hate to see a playoff driver have damage this early on. Let's take a look and see what happened. The car I saw out of shape first was the blue and white Icebreakers machine of Ulysses Sandoval. And we'll see if maybe he got some help. I thought I saw some smoke come out from behind his car. He's behind Wiley Coat. Oh, bumper grab. That's what, right there. There's where the smoke came from as he came off the wall. But he bumper grabbed off the back of the 5. There's Rodney Sullins on the top left. Tom Dixon there. Brian Lovell, top of your screen. And Billy Elliser in the 26. Looks like a 5-car incident as we'll go back and take another look at it. See if we can get ourselves a better camera angle. Watch on the left side of your screen. You'll see Sandoval behind Wiley Coat. Clips off the right rear of Brian Rawson. Might have just barely gotten the left rear quarter panel of Billy Elliser. Very light taps, and I don't really think anybody outside of the 096 hit the wall either. So we got away with one right there. I think everybody's going to be good to go. Let's take an onboard with the Black Rifle Coffee, number 38 of Rodney Sullins. You saw the 41 of Denny Carroll was back behind everybody there. So he got through unscathed. So no damage for him, one of our playoff contenders. Denny had actually started this race from 27th. And at the point that we saw him passing by Rodney Sullins, he had drifted all the way back to 37th. So he had lost some spots there on that run. Might have been a blessing in disguise, though, because I think that the incident itself occurred somewhere around the 27th, 28th spot. So it would have been right in the vicinity of where Denny Carroll qualified. Jeremy Jeffries stays out, leads a lap, and he'll head to pit road. We talked about it last week. Every point so crucial into making the playoffs. Well, to sound like a broken record, every point crucial here in this round to make sure you advance into the next round, because the task is going to get, I don't want to say it's going to get easier, but it kind of is in terms of who you're battling against. Consider the fact that in this first round, you are one driver going up against another 13 drivers for 8 available spots. In the next round, you're one driver going up against 7 other drivers for 4 available spots, and then obviously you and 3 other competitors, if you are fortunate to advance into the final round of the playoffs, compete for the championship in the 2 final races of the season. So your odds and your competitors are greater here in this first round. So we'll see about that call there for Jeremy Jeffries. Jeremy, of course, the defending champion, so he's been here before. He's probably got a playbook for what to do here in this postseason. And he'll give up a ton of track position, though, for that valuable bonus point for a lap lead. Mike Mangialardi, the pole sitter, now gets his first lap lead of the night. Remember, he started on the pole but did not have a good initial launch. Chuck McClure led the first 4 laps of the race. So Mangialardi finally gets the bonus point that he didn't get back on lap 1. Looks like Donnie Garrett may inherit the race lead if the top 3 that we see here come to pit road. They are the only ones that have not pit under this caution period. Garrett won the battle off of pit road between himself and Chuck McClure. Glenn Harris came off pit road in 3rd, followed by Seminara and McDonald. And surprisingly, the top 3 do not hit pit lane. They will keep the track position, be at a deficit in terms of fuel. They will more than likely have to come to pit road somewhere around lap, I'd say 15 to 16, while the rest of the leaders, they'll be able to wait coming to pit road until somewhere closer to lap 28 to 30. If indeed they got the tank completely full of fuel. So Mangialardi will line up on the inside of the front row once again. He'll have Robert Breedlove to his outside. Breedlove qualified dead last in this evening's race. Denny Carroll will move up to third. Donnie Garrett, highest driver who pitted in fourth. Chuck McClure fifth. Glenn Harris sixth. Seventh will be Bob Seminara. Graham McDonald eighth. Keith Bynum and Josh Metallic are going to be the top 10. As they make their way down the back straightaway here, our focus turns to the bracket challenge. We've already decided the winner on the winner's side of the bracket, Joe DeSpirito, waiting in the wings, seeing who his competitor will be closer to the end of this season. Tonight we focus on the loser side of the bracket as Donnie Garrett takes on Terry Bombard. Winner of that matchup will face Denny Carroll next week. Tim Nofsker takes on Jessica Shelton. Winner of that matchup will face off against Grant Wesley next week in the semifinals of the loser side of the bracket. It won't be until the next to last and final races of the season in the final round of these playoffs where we will determine the official champion of the bracket series. Could be won as early as the next to last race of the season if the winner, Joe DeSpirito, on the winner's side of the bracket ends up winning that matchup. But if whoever the eventual winner of the loser side of the bracket defeats Joe DeSpirito in the fifth playoff race, it will go to a rubber match in the season finale. Lap 8 about to be complete. Lap 9 goes on the board. Denny Carroll giving a nice shove there to Mike Mangialardi. Breedlove trying to get the edge on that top side there. And again, even despite the good bump from Denny Carroll, looks like Mangialardi not able to get himself a good jump. Breedlove edged ahead by Hapakarlik. Now Mangialardi battles back on the bottom. Carroll gets a little tight there off of turn 2. And now you see the momentum there in that middle line. Bob Seminara jumped from bottom to top through 1 and 2. He's behind the Krispy Kreme Chevrolet of Glenn Harris. A lot of drivers made it into the playoffs this season without going to victory lane just based off of consistency, one of them being your regular season champion, Grant Wesley. He was runner-up a number of times, but just was not quite able to get that checkered flag. Other drivers who did not get a victory but pointed their way in included Brian Schilling and Jessica Shelton, Bob Seminara, Chuck McClure, Donnie Garrett, Denny Carroll. All would not turn their noses up at a victory here tonight in an automatic ticket into the round of 8. We'll have a total of 6 drivers eliminated from this first round when the checkered flag waves next week at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. How about that third line forming up there? That's the Rusty Wallace throwback of Hank Middleton leading that third line. Playoff contender Jessica Shelton up there. Terry Bombard, who we just mentioned, is in the matchup tonight in the bracket challenge. A lot of movement up here at the front as well. Donnie Garrett sliding high. Denny Carroll sliding low in those second lanes, respective inside and middle lanes. And Bob Seminara saw that momentum coming up on the third lane. He jumps up to the top side. Big push from Hank Middleton now. It was interesting, I talked last week during our post-race interview with Josh Metallic down in Victory Lane, asked him about the different fundamentals of this track to Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, how it seems like the middle line, the third line, seemed to all of a sudden lose momentum. You saw Seminara jump up to that third lane to lead them around, and it did not stall their momentum. They were able to maintain it and actually continue to gain ground. Josh pointed out that The track we're going to next week, the track where it's so pivotal, this entire playoffs where the elimination races are, Birch Screwdrivers Raceway, if a car moves up there to stall that momentum and try and lead a line, it's very difficult to get that momentum back. So I think a lot of drivers might be looking specifically here at Talladega, not here just tonight, but I also think maybe in 2 weeks' time during the first race of the round of 8 as well, to lock themselves up a spot in the next round of the playoffs because of the kind of unpredictability and emphasis on track position that BSR tends to bring to the table. I just noticed there the one of Jeremy Jeffries up all by himself further back in the pack on the high side. I'm wondering if maybe he doesn't like what he sees up ahead here and he wanted to get out of Dodge. There you see him right up against the wall. He is looking like he is purposely trying to distance himself from this pack. And that might not be such bad strategy. Mike Mangialardi, though, leading that inside line with Denny Carroll. Chuck McClure in third place. Keith Bynum side by side with Grant Wesley for P4. Grant Wesley, as mentioned, runner-up quite a number of times here this season. Looking to get back to victory lane, the 3-time Talladega Challenge Series champion. It's got a good push from Donnie Garrett. Some fast cars up in that middle line. Seminara, Hank Middleton there as well. 3 playoff contenders nose to tail with the 88, 77, and 712. Keeping an eye towards the back of the pack here, and there are quite a number of your playoff contenders, much like Jeremy Jeffries, who are kind of just riding back there to see what happens. Brian Schilling last time by was scored in last. Second in points. Brian Rawson is back there as well. Maybe just riding, waiting to see what happens. Can't be a fuel strategy play because all those drivers I just mentioned came to pit road under our only caution up to this point. And speaking of that caution, we had 3 drivers who did not come to pit road. The highest running of them right now being Mike Mangialardi. Also Denny Carroll and Robert Breedlove. And they're going to have to come to pit road somewhere in the next 6 laps. Everybody else, they'd be able to go more than likely somewhere to around laps 28 to 30, depending on how late they pit and how much they'd be able to save on this run. Grant Wesley to the point. Will also be interesting to see if it holds true. A statistic that we have been able to take to the bank this season so far in the first... Well, it would be now the first 9 races of the season, is the driver who has led the most laps has not gone on, I'm sorry, the first 8 races I should say, the driver that has led the most laps has not gone on to win the race. Will that hold true here tonight? Ooh, Middleton. Thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it. Finally commits to the inside line. Seminara didn't have to think about it. He immediately jumps down to the inside as well. Gets up alongside of Donnie Garrett for the second position. Little push up there off of 2, crowding the 77 up. As Tom Dixon jumps to the apron to fall to the back. Meanwhile, Terry Bombard leading lane 3. Back around the 14th position. Looking back there towards the rear of the field, and I think we've got one driver in danger of losing the pack. I think that's the 7 of Cy Jones. We'll drop back there in a minute. Oh, there's a couple of others. Whoa, John Godfrey there on the apron. Is he going to get back up safely? Do they give him the room he needs? Yes, they do. Billy Elliser, Rodney Sullins, who were involved in the first wreck of the evening. I don't think they've got damage. They're going to catch up here. Cy Jones has reeled them in, and now it's Tom Dixon. Looks like he might be in danger of losing this lead pack. As look at this hornet's nest here. 3 wide. Looks like 5 or 6 rows deep. Jessica Shelton now leading the top line. Grant Wesley in the middle, and Seminara edges out to the lead on the bottom. And I'm seeing a lot of movement, a lot of side to side, a lot of wiggle in there. Out of a bunch of drivers in their respective lanes, just takes one wrong move and it will have catastrophic results. I talked about drivers kind of eyeing this as a must-win situation race, but you also have to think big picture. Yeah, you want the checkered flag, you want the automatic ticket into the next round, but you don't want to put yourself in a perilous position where you are on the outside looking in an elimination race next week. If you can get out of this first race with a top 5 or a top 10, take it. Don't bring it home in 25th or 30th. Well, Grant Wesley saw the momentum on that third line, jumped up there to try and pick it up, but it does not look like it has worked. Your top 8 on the bottom have all gotten themselves cleared. Back to Donnie Garrett. Jeff Crivello trying to do the same. There's now a bunch of drivers abandoning that middle line. There's only about 3 or 4 drivers in the middle groove now. Glenn Harris was one of those drivers. I think last week's winner, Josh Metallic, as well. As Bob Seminara continues to show the way. I believe either scoring hasn't updated or scoring has a bit of a glitch because it's not showing him with any laps led. We'll give it a little bit of time here for it to update itself. Hank Middleton in that second position in the 2. And I believe, keep an eye on 3rd and 4th place. The 029, Mike Mangialardi, the 41 of Denny Carroll, because I think I might have just seen some radios light up. Those are some drivers that have to pit either this lap or next, and I think they're coming to pit road this time by. Mangialardi is indeed coming to pit road, Denny Carroll, and Breedlove. These are the 3 who did not pit under our only caution back on lap 4. So they are coming down together. And now they have to hope that either they catch a yellow flag where they're still on the lead lap, or that this green flag pit stop cycle completes. These drivers won't be to pit road for another 6 laps or so. Keith Bynum, when those drivers indicated they were coming to pit lane, took the opportunity to jump up to the top, knowing the inside line was going to lose momentum, lose cars. Greg Lovell jumped up there with him, and Bynum, by half a car length, edges ahead through 3 and 4. You know, we showed you the 14 drivers that made it into this season's playoffs. How about some of the names that failed to make it into the postseason? Just on the outside looking in, Terry Bombard, Tim Knopfsker, Greg Palmer, Bernie Mobbs, Mark Paglia, Graham McDonald, who looked very consistent at the beginning of the season, but then found some hard luck in the second half of the regular season. Ron Hagelin, Rodney Sullins, John Godfrey had a victory, but just couldn't get himself into the top 20 in points. Kelly Causey, some big names that did not make it into the playoffs here this season, as this is going to be sketchy. 4 wide off of turn 4 as they were trying to get around Denny Carroll. Looks like they succeeded in doing so. Looks like the 45 of Tom Dixon, early night for him. He's taken to the garage area, but I don't believe any of those 3 drivers, Carroll, Breedlove, or Mangialardi, who came to pit road, were able to remain on the lead lap. They all have now been put a lap down, so now they absolutely are looking for this thing to cycle around. Either that, or they'd be fighting for the 2 available lucky dog positions, which right now would be Denny Carroll and Robert Breedlove. think we have some drivers maybe coming to pit road here, maybe a little earlier than expected. Thought I saw chat light up. It might have been for something other than drivers pitting. Let's cycle pit road just to see. It is Bob Dixon in the 143. That'll be an indication that we'll have another lap or two before just about everybody will dive onto pit lane. How orderly will it be, though? We're nearing halfway. We're getting to that point where if you're a playoff driver, you really don't want to make a mistake on a green flag pit stop, and you aren't going to have to worry about it because we got a flipper on the front straightaway. Caution is out, and I believe the car I saw upside down was playoff contender Joe DeSpirito. Bynum collects the caution, and I'm pretty certain it was that black and neon yellow 24 that I saw upside down, spinning like a top on its roof. Only time will tell of just how much damage he's got. Bernie Mobbs looks like he was collected up in it as well. Possibly Wiley Coate. Brian Lovell on pit road. And one of our playoff contenders might find themselves in a spot of bother here, not quite halfway through tonight's first playoff race. Let's go back to the front straightaway. This was in the mid-pack. I actually saw the caution lights on before I even saw the wreck. The wreck was just below our camera shot there through the tri-oval. Let's take you all the way back to exit of turn 4. DeSpirito was running. Oh, we had an engine failure. That was Brian Lovell up on the top side, and as the engine let go, it shot his car down to the left. It clipped the right rear of DeSpirito, sending him up and over. That car fortunately did land back on its wheels, but one of the big talking points last season, this season, Zach Rogers touched on it as well a couple of weeks ago, is that this particular mod, the Aero 88 cars, are very deceptive into indicating just how much damage a car has. We have had occasions where, you know, a back end will be completely pushed in with the fuel cell exposed, or the front end will be completely crunched and the hood having a kind of a V shape to it. But a lot of times we don't really get a clear indicator of just how damaged and off the pace a car might be until we get back green. You know, Lovell, when the engine let go, he gets a tap from behind by Brian Rawson. And there you see Wiley Coate spinning through the grass. There is Bernie Mobbs as well. Just no indication available to anybody, especially in that portion of the track, of where to be able to plan an exit route if somebody's engine lets go. That's a tough break there for Brian Lovell. Let's take an onboard with the car that was right behind him. Two-time winner playoff contender Brian Rawson. It's amazing that he wasn't caught up in this. This is inside the cockpit of the car. And watch what he sees when the black smoke erupts from underneath the 043. Just narrowly able to get through that. So second caution of the night, this one right on the eve of our first complete cycle of green flag pit stops. Looks like most of our leaders came to pit road. A couple of drivers electing to stay out here. Terry Bombard in the 10 stays out for a lap led, and he will undoubtedly dive onto pit road this next time by. Believe that, waiting for scoring to officially update, but I believe that Denny Carroll and Mike Mangialardi are going to be the free pass cars. First two cars one lap down. To that end, looks like Robert Breedlove in the 931, the other lap machine, may elect to take the wave around. He can't take it yet because another lead lap car in Brian Rawson will stay out. This could be twofold. Rawson may be feeling that he's responsible for the yellow, though, I mean, what are you supposed to do when an engine lets go in front of you? But he also could be doing much like what we saw Jeremy Jeffries do early on in the first caution and get that lap-led bonus point. Brian Rawson, two-time winner on the season, but he wasn't very high up in the top 10 in the point standings, which is why he comes into this first race of the playoffs in a tie for 7th with Chuck McClure. If we eliminated the tie, he would be in the 7th position. McClure would be 8th, just based on how they are listed. I think it's also based off of average finish on the season as to what the tiebreaker is on how it lists them. And we can actually show you those playoff standings here coming into tonight. Of course, the question mark on Joe DeSpirito, 5th in points. How is this going to situate him? We'll have to see if that car is going to be up to speed or not. If not, he could fall below that critical 8th position in points. Well, Brian Rawson, if he makes the dive to pit road, we'll probably see the 931 of Breedlove take the wave around, and then Keith Bynum would cycle to the lead for the upcoming restart. Two drivers back in the garage area at this point in time. Brian Lovell with the engine failure just moments ago. Tom Dixon as well. They'll get credit for 36th and 37th. And you see the Lucky Dogs there up on the top side getting ready to get their laps back when the lights go out on the rusty little tribute pace car. We're going to step aside for a quick FRN race break, and then we'll be back here to continue the action from Talladega Superspeedway. Don't go anywhere, though, because we are going to show you the action as it happens until we return for the restart. Lap 30 will go on the board as we will get them back underway. One more pit stop to the end of this race as well. More than likely somewhere around the lap 50 mark, if indeed we run the entirety of this stint under green. Working our second caution of the night, Keith Bynum will be the one to get us back underway. Greg Lovell will line up to his outside. Chuck McClure, highest run of our playoff contenders, in third. Tim Nofsker in fourth. Bob Seminaro will complete the top five, followed by Donnie Garrett, Hank Middleton, Grant Wesley, Jessica Shelton, and Josh Metallic. 35 drivers remain, all 35 on the lead lap, 2 via the Lucky Dog, 1 via the wave around. The green flag will fly once again here at Talladega Superspeedway. Both Tim Nofsker and Chuck McClure, the second cars in their respective lines, trying to time the restart, give a good shove to the car in front of them. Looks like Keith Bynum going to clear Greg here through turn 2. Does he jump up to that middle line or stay committed to the bottom? He'll stay on the inside line. That'll allow Greg Lovell to have a big run. Ooh, Bob Seminara there. Might have gotten an awkward bump from Hank Middleton as he almost was down halfway below the yellow line. Bunch of drivers that we saw kind of riding at the back, now up here at the front. Nofsker in the 088. Brian Schilling in the 4. There you see him, right behind Josh Metallic. And then if you look a couple cars behind him, Rodney Sullins in the 38. So a bunch of these drivers just kind of hanging out at the back during that last run. Now they get the track position, and they're going to try and do something with it. We will keep an eye out for the 24 of Joe DeSpirito, who took that wild ride on his roof through the tri-oval. See if he is up to speed or not. I saw him just there in the middle line with Bernie Mobbs, who was also involved in that last caution. We'll see if those two are up to speed, at least can hang up here in the lead pack or not. Nofsker crosses from top to bottom to the inside of Greg Lovell, who has no help until you get to Josh Metallic 2 car lengths back. Nofsker will easily move to the top position. Garrett into second. Wesley moves to third. Bynum gets into Greg Lovell there. Spreads the field out a bunch. Josh Metallic had to bail out of the throttle, and now he free falls outside of the top 10. Looks like the 24 and the 31 have nestled themselves down on the inside line. They are still up in this lead pack, good to go. Top 7 single file. As soon as I say that, Hank Middleton from the 6th position will move out of line. Jessica Shelton, Greg Palmer will jump up there with him, trying to make something happen and charge into the top 5. Crossing the line here, now halfway home in tonight's race. Laps led bonus points still pretty much up for grabs. Keith Bynum has led the most laps tonight, but he's only led a total of 6 circuits out in front. Chuck McClure has led 4. Grant Wesley has led 3. 2 laps led for Bob Seminara and currently Tim Nofsker, as well as Robert Breedlove, and then 1 lap led apiece for Greg Lovell, Terry Bombard, Jeremy Jeffries, and Brian Ross. And actually, correction on that, Keith Bynum has not led the most laps. Pole sitter Mike Mangialardi has. He has had 8 circuits out in front, so currently he is in possession of the most laps led bonus point, albeit running currently towards the tail end of the field in 34th, since he needed the lucky dog of the previous caution to get back on the lead lap. Appreciate everybody tuning into our coverage here tonight on FRN. Be sure to stick around post-race for the FRN post-race interviews. We'll be talking with our top 3 finishers. Potentially talking to a race winner that is moving on to the round of 8 for the playoffs. The statistics, the odds I guess you could say, are not in favor of a playoff driver winning this playoff race. However, playoff drivers always seem to make it work. Hank Middleton, Jessica Shelton worked really well here tonight. Saw them back during the first run working together also. And Middleton trying to get up there to the top position. Rodney Sullins jumps out of line, and I thought he might be falling to the back, but nope. Ooh, wow. Big move there from Shelton. She'll get up to the 3rd line that Keith Bynum and Greg Lovell were forming, and that just killed the momentum of both those lanes. Inside line now edges ahead. Top 3, I believe, on the bottom have got themselves clear of the 2 outer lanes. Now make it the top 4. Chuck McClure, I believe, we could say the same for him. If you're just joining us, we're 2 cautions so far here tonight. First caution, 5-car incident. Really no damage sustained for any of the drivers involved. They are all up to speed in this lead pack currently. Second caution was off turn 4. Brian Lovell with an engine failure around the midway portion of the pack. Joe DeSpirito went up and over and slid on his roof for a good couple of yards before eventually coming back on all four wheels. Jury is still kind of out on that 24. He is still up in this lead pack, but I've not seen him make forward progress, so I'm wondering if it's a case of he's okay as long as he's in the pack, but he does not have a car that would be able to lead a line to the front. Right now, he is the next to last car in line, has Bob Dixon behind him. If Dixon gets around the 24, I'm not exactly certain what the scenario would be for DeSpirito. Has a lot of jostling back here again. Shelton moved low, Bynum moved high. Doesn't seem like anybody is able to get themselves formed up. And therefore, there's really no middle or third line currently happening. Everything's just down on the bottom from first back to around the 9th, 10th position. You can make the lines work, but there has to be a minimal amount of movement to keep the draft nice and tight. Tim Knopfsker now moves up to tied for second on most laps tonight. Actually now firmly in second with 7 laps led. If he leads the next 2, he will surpass Mike Mangialardi for most laps led this evening. Knopfsker, one of those drivers that was able to point his way into the playoffs. Currently in the final seed, though, of 14th. Oh, and it's going to get spun off the nose of Donnie Garrett! Can he save it? Looks like it. Oh, and now he's going to get hit from behind by Billy Elliser. And Cy Jones. Rear wheels come off the ground. Cy Jones takes a hit into the inside wall. And the caution's going to fly. Pole sitter Mike Mangialardi involved. I believe Jeremy Jeffries was in it. Billy Elliser in the 26th. Second incident he's been involved in tonight. That went horribly wrong. It almost went correct, and then it didn't. Knopfsker from the lead, off the nose of Donnie Garrett. Saved it through the trioval, but when he came back up on the racing surface, there was just too big a difference of speed between him and the rest of the drivers in the pack. Got tagged from behind by the 26th of Elliser. And the caution waves for the third time tonight, and this puts us outside of the fuel window of these drivers being able to make it the rest of the way, so we could be in for a bit of a fuel strategy race from here on out. Let's take a look and see what happened as Donnie Garrett has picked up the yellow. Was it just a case of bumper grab? Was it a bad bump in the trioval? Let's see. Knopfsker up a little bit there off the line. And then when he turns back down, I think he did bumper hook off the front of the 77. Then right here, he comes back up the track. He's at 150 miles per hour in the middle of the pack there. The field was thundering up to his back bumper at 200 miles per hour. Let's take a look and see. I think they were 3 wide back there too, so it's not like Billy Elliser had a lot of choices on where to be able to go. Plus, he doesn't know exactly what line the 099 or 088 is going to stop in. Oh, they're 4 wide back there. You see Elliser turn down to the bottom. He was 3 wide. He had Terry Bombard to his outside. He had Cy Jones to his inside. Where is he supposed to go? I mean, he can only guess where the 088 is going to end up. Here's an onboard with Billy Elliser. Can't blame him at all on this. He's just trying to figure out where the 088 is going to come back up. Yeah, I mean, you saw him turn down as if he was going to try and pass to the inside. And when he turned down low, Knopfsker turned down low and kind of blocked the lane there. So, yeah, if you're Billy Elliser, I don't know what you're supposed to do in that kind of a situation. Now, we saw the one, even with that onboard there, of Jeremy Jeffries involved. Let's see how bad the damage might be for him. He was at the very back of the pack here, too. Postleter Mike Mangialardi also gets involved. Oh, they all stacked up. Mangialardi gets on the brakes. Jeremy Jeffries into the back of him. DeSpirito into the back of Jeffries. They all stacked up and trying to slow up for the incident ahead. I don't know, that would be front-end damage, I would certainly think, for the Goldfish machine, as well as for the 24 of DeSpirito, but I don't know just how much damage that would actually be. And we have gotten a report that the 28 of Mark Paglia has blown up. Let's see if we can find out where that happened. An engine piston has taken him back behind the wall. See if we can pinpoint that for you. It would have been under pacing here, I do believe. And it looks like it's in 3 and 4. After they had already taken the caution, he was in the 11th position. And there you see it. No downshift, no nothing. Engine just goes boom. Wow. That's a tough break there for Paglia, who was having a good night. Was up, as I mentioned, in the 11th position. Was knocking on the door of getting into the top 10. Was in the top 15 for most of that last run. And like that, figuratively and literally, his night ends early, goes up in a plume of smoke. Now, we do have some drivers diving onto pit road here. Grant Wesley stayed out to lead a lap, and now he has hit pit road. Looks like Ron Hagelin, Kelly Causey, Billy Elliser, Cy Jones also stayed out an extra lap. So as I said, nobody can make it the rest of the way on fuel from this point on, regardless of if the lights go out on the pace car this next time by or in 2 laps' time. But for those few that came to pit road here under the second lap of pacing, they might be of the thought process that they could take on less fuel than everybody else when and if that pit stop comes around. I mean, let's speculate that the caution comes out, or that the green flag comes out on lap 44, giving us 22 to go. Could be a difference between taking on a half can of fuel and just a splash of fuel on the pit stop. And when it comes to green flag pit stops at a super speedway, time means everything. So a tough break there for Mark Paglia. He will join Brian Lovell and Tom Dixon back in the garage area. No lucky dogs under this caution period. Everybody was on the lead lap at the time of that yellow. Donnie Garrett will be the one, looks like, to get us back under green. Chuck McClure alongside of him, and then Jessica Shelton, Josh Metallic, and Brian Schilling, all 5 playoff contenders, sweeping the top 5 positions. Bob Seminara, another playoff driver, will sweep the first 3 rows. Hank Middleton, Greg Palmer, Keith Bynum, and Rodney Sullins look like they're going to be the top 10. I wanted to look quickly here at the 712 of Bob Seminara because he's down there on the bottom of the racetrack. Oh, Garrett's coming to pit road. Okay, so this is what I was wondering about Seminara, if maybe he was going to come to pit lane. He didn't take his space up on the top side there. I don't know if he knew that Garrett was coming to pit lane, so he'd be restarting on the bottom, or if he just wants to run the shorter way around the racetrack here for these pacing laps until the 1 to green, then he'll double up. But interesting call here for a playoff driver. Coming to pit road. Did anybody else go with that strategy, or is Garrett the only one? Ron Hagelin's in. There's others. Graham McDonald, Jeremy Jeffries, Joe DeSpirito, Grant Wesley, Kelly Causey, Robert Breedlove, Tim Knofsker in that, along with Wiley Coates. I still don't think they can make it. They could probably get to that point of no return if the race ended under yellow and have enough fuel to get around to the checkered flag, but I think that's the only way they could get to the end right now. Under green flag conditions, I don't think there's a way they could save enough fuel. They'd be about a lap or 2 short. So it will not be Garrett who will lead us back to green. It'll actually be Chuck McClure. And Jessica Shelton will now share the front row with him. It's going to be 23 laps to go when they come around here and hit the start-finish line. It's 2 laps past the max that we know a driver can go, and that's if they are saving a bunch under a full green flag run. Usually the median we're given is 20 laps. Most often we see most everybody on pit road 19 laps into a run. We'll see how it plays out. Could the first playoff race of the season come down to fuel strategy? So now Josh Metallic and Brian Schilling will be row 2, Seminara and Middleton row 3. Palmer, Bynum, Sullins, and now Greg Lovell moves up into the top 10 after Garrett came to pit road. Well, is that our final caution of the night? Will we see this play out in green flag pit stops and fuel strategy, or will another yellow flag muddy the waters and maybe take the fuel strategy game completely out of the picture? We're moments away from finding out as Chuck McClure gets us back under green flag here at Talladega. Oh, we got a wreck at the back. Half dozen drivers were strewn across the start-finish line there. And the caution is out once more. Hard to tell if these drivers are having to race their way back via frozen field or not. I think they are. Like a bunch of drivers towards the tail end of the pack involved in that one, and I believe one of them was the 77 of Donnie Garrett. So the strategy call of pitting at the 1 to green, losing all that track position, put him back in the eye of the storm, and pretty sure he was collected up in this one, and along with a number of others. It was a restart wreck, so the likelihood of it being a high-impact wreck, pretty unlikely, but then again, you never know. Bobby Farrell, Joe DeSpirito back here. Not 100% certain all of who back in this group would have been involved. I do know Donnie Garrett was one of them. I think the one of Jeremy Jeffries was also involved. But we'll get that confirmation here as we go back and take a look at the replay. A lot of times your restart wrecks are a driver either trying to anticipate the green or a driver not able to get going. Let's see if it's one of those scenarios here. I believe this happens further up, just outside of the top 20. Let's focus on the 92 of Bobby Farrell. He gets hooked in the right rear quarter panel by Cy Jones. It was hard to tell there from that vantage point if it was the 92 didn't get going or the 7 got going too well. But there's Kelly Causey, there's Joe DeSpirito, we know they were caught up in it. See if the chopper cam will give us an indication. The 92 was giving quite a bit of space to Mangialardi up ahead. Let's take it back here to the middle of the tri-oval. So watch how this all unfolds. 92 backs off. There's about half a car length, 3/4 of a car length, then a full car length there. He stacks up the inside line. And then right there, the green comes out, and he just doesn't get going. The bumpers are uneven, and he gets spun around by the 7. Robert Breedlove was in that. There is Donnie Garrett. Graham McDonald, I believe, caught up in it as well. So like I said, very light contact with it being a restart wreck, but a caution nonetheless. And this caution, I think, not 100%. We'll have to wait and see when we end up going back green, but I think this caution now does spoil the fuel strategy game. I think everybody would be able to pit here under this caution period, either on lap 2, lap 3. A bunch of drivers up here at the front are clutching. I think now this is the yellow they needed to be able to be within the fuel window to make it the rest of the race. So Chuck McClure out in front. Double checking here to see. Yes, that last lap that he just led, now he is in possession of the most laps led bonus point. 8 laps out in front, beating the tiebreaker between Mike Mangialardi and Tim Nofsker. And we'll see if he can not only get the bonus point for leading the most laps, but also garner the 5 bonus points to win the race and automatically lock himself up a trip into the round of 8. Well, we are this time by 20 laps away from the conclusion of the first playoff race of Season 62 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. A reminder, join us next week as we're under the lights at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. We will whittle down our playoff field from the original 14 to 8. We may already have one driver moving on to said round of 8 after tonight. Some drivers coming to pit road here, other drivers electing to stay out. Shelton gives up second to make the dive to pit road. McClure faded like he was going to come down pit road, elected to still stay out. A lot of gamesmanship going on here as we are now at 20 laps to go here this evening. We're going to step aside for another FRN race break, and we'll be back here to the action for the restart in just a few moments. Lights out atop the pace car. You saw there during the FRN race break, the gamesmanship continues. A bunch of drivers diving onto pit road at the 1 to green, including then race leader Chuck McClure. That turned the race lead over to the 712 of Bob Seminara. Denny Caro will now be second. Jeff Crivello, the highest he's been tonight, in third. Bernie Mobbs up in fourth. And Grant Wesley completes the top 5. Donnie Garrett now gains a bunch of the track position back that he lost on the fuel strategy call into the last yellow. He'll be 6th, Josh Metallic 7th, Randy Waugh, Brian Rawson, and Terry Bombard. That's going to be your top 10. Heard the engine shut off, the clutch thrown in for Bob Seminara, hoping he's got enough fuel to see him to the conclusion of tonight's event. More than likely, everybody that pitted there at that 1 to green, they should be able to make it the rest of the way now, regardless of if the race ends under green or under caution. Stack up on that inside line there. Seminara with a shove from Jeff Crivello. Denny Carroll, not much of a push from Bernie Mobbs. Seminara clear on the bottom. Can move up to that second lane if he wants to. Shades to the middle line. Crivello trying to get himself clear there of Denny Carroll. Not clear. Carroll will move up to the third line, and he's going to get shuffled out, though, because Bernie Mobbs will now move to the middle. Grant Wesley now the leader of the inside line with Josh Metallic, a couple of former champions down there. Seminara now going to have to play defense. He's got 3 different lines coming up to him. Crivello on his bumper. Wesley leading the bottom. Denny Carroll leading the third line. Now for Seminara, the question is not only does he have the fuel to get to the end, but does he have the fuel to get to the end with staying out in front? Remember, the race leader is at a disadvantage when it comes to fuel mileage because they create the draft for everybody else behind them. Clean air is great. Having the field behind you is great, but you're consuming a lot more fuel than they are. As we start to approach 10 laps to go, 3 different lanes working. Inside line up to side-by-side for 3rd. Outside line in a 3-wide situation for 5th. We do this every week. Let's shout out our winners of the week in the respective RTG series. Jeff Supta took the checkered flag at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway Monday night in the Bare Bones Racing Series. Tuesday night in Speed Freaks, they were at Texas World. Josh Metallic going to victory lane. And how about last night in the Lightning Truck Series at the Bermuda Triangle? Doug Cady going to victory lane. The series that I run on Sunday nights was actually at the Bermuda Triangle this past weekend. Good race, wild finish. Long green flag run in that one as well. Green flag pit stops. I give a shameless plug. Why not? If you want to come out and join us on Sunday nights for the NSRA Snickers Super Speedway Series, we'd love to have you. No playoffs. We run, I believe it's 16 different super speedways during the course of this season. We're only 4 races into the schedule. We've had some good racing. 4 different drivers have gone to victory lane. Meanwhile, here this season, we've had 8 different drivers who have gone to victory lane. We got a spinner. That's Terry Bombard. No caution. I was checking to see if the caution lights were going to come on or not, because the 10 didn't really spin until he was down below the yellow line. Car in the infield grass between 1 and 2. Now we're going to have to check and see. I don't know exactly who it was that he spun off the nose of, but if we see somebody come to pit road here, they might be serving a pass-through penalty, claiming responsibility. But that's a tough break there for Terry Bombard, one of our playoff contenders. 13th in the playoff standings coming into tonight. He's going to hope to see for another yellow flag here to be able to catch back up. And he might not have to wait too long. There's been a lot of movement in the field here tonight. We've only had the caution fly 4 times this evening. And we haven't exactly seen, really by super speedway standards, we haven't seen the big one. I think the most drivers we've had involved in a wreck here tonight has been 6 or 7 cars. And that wreck was very light contact, the last caution we had, that restart wreck. Everything else has been about, what, 3 to 5 cars involved? And the biggest hit we've seen taken here tonight was Joe DeSpirito up on his lid here through the tri-oval back during the second caution. Brian Rawson. This has been a breakout season for him. 2 trips to victory lane, back-to-back victories in races 6 and 7. He likes to start out back, make his way to the front in the closing stages, looking to do it yet again. Looking to be a 3-time winner on the season, and he's already made the playoffs for the first time in his career, now looking to advance into the round of 8 for the first time in his career. He's got a lot of help out back there in Tim Knopfsker, Chuck McClure, Brian Schilling. Jeremy Jeffries has made his way back up here into the top 10 after being involved in that last yellow. A couple cars behind him. How about Robert Breedlove? Had to take the wave around a few cautions ago. And now back up here knocking on the door of the top 10. John Godfrey right there behind the 77 of Donnie Garrett. And how about the 36 of Jeff Crivello? Second car on that inside line. The Quaker Steak Machine having a great run here tonight. Now, Terry Bombard was able to get his car refired. He is still on the lead lap. Scoring has him about roughly half a lap down. And the caution is out. That's exactly what he needed to see. Caution waves for the 5th time here tonight. It is race back at this point in time as they're 3 abreast crossing the stripe. Knopfsker edges out Rawson and McClure. And it may have been Bobby Farrell the reason here for this most recent yellow. You saw the 10 of Terry Bombard. This breathes new life into that machine. Like some pretty good contact to the left side door of the Richard Petty blue number 92 car. Question is, who made said dent? Pace car making its way up here through the field to pick up race leader Tim Knopfsker. Don't think you'll see anybody coming to pit road outside of those that might come to pit road for crash damage repair. I think everybody's got what they've got for the conclusion of this race. Maybe some stragglers towards the back of the pack will come down pit road. Not much to lose in terms of track position, but I don't think you'll see any of your front runners come down pit road. They will keep the track position they've got because we're going to get the upcoming restart with less than 10 remaining. And let's go back and see if we can find out what brought out this caution. Actually, I think we've got enough time here. Let's see if we can actually pinpoint what happened with the 10 of Terry Bombard first, since we've got the opportunity. And it looks like it might have been 111 that tags him, but I think he gets a bump. Yeah, Ron Hagelin gets a shove from Greg Lovell. That unsettles him up the track, and he gets Terry Bombard in the left rear quarter panel. Fortunately for Terry, he didn't hit anything. Slides into the grass. It stalls the momentum of the slide. He's able to keep going, and he did remain on the lead lap. So he won't even have to rely on a caution. Let's now see what happened with the 92 of Bobby Farrell. Oh, actually, it wasn't him, but he was involved, and we had our second car of the night go up and over. See if we can find out what happens around this area here, potentially. They checked up. Rodney checking up for Bernie Mobbs. Greg Lovell into the back of him. You see those skid marks off to the left. That's Bobby Farrell, and there he is, grip flipping down the banking and in the grass through the middle of turn 4. Let's see how he got clipped. He was quite a ways behind the incident. See the smoke ahead of him. Nobody behind him. And... oh, he's going to get tagged in the right rear by Hagelin. And right there, as he's on the brakes, car's at just the right angle where it grip flips over and barrel rolls down the banking of the racetrack down into the grass. And that would account for that left side damage. Looks like he will be able to continue on. But now it's going to set us up for a shootout here tonight. And I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think we're going to get this restart prior to the designated point of no return. If my projections are correct, especially since we didn't have anybody a lap down under this caution, I think the lights will go out next time by. So we'll restart on lap 61, which is 1 lap ahead of that point of no return. So there is a possibility we could get ourselves yet another restart if the caution came out on the same lap as the green flag for the restart of the race. Well, Tim Nofsker, Brian Rawson, Chuck McClure, Bob Seminara, Brian Schilling, your top 5, all playoff drivers, all looking to win tonight. Because if they do, they know they are going to be one of the 8 drivers advancing to the next round, regardless of what happens to them next week. When we're under the lights at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, join us here on FRN for the first elimination race of the season. Green flag going to be displayed at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Should be a good one. Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway has been the venue of really all the pivotal points of the season and will be down this home stretch. It's where the regular season finale and the playoff grid was put together last week. It's where the elimination races will take place, whittling the field down from 14 to 8, eventually 8 down to our final 4. And even though it is a 2-race final round, it is where we will eventually be crowning the Season 62 Talladega Challenge Series champion. Should get the 1 to green this time. 34 cars still running and on the lead lap. Only 3 drivers back behind the wall. 2 of them due to mechanical issues. Mark Paglia and Brian Lovell. Tom Dixon with an early retirement, just bringing it to pit road and turning it into the garage area. So nobody has retired out of the race due to crash damage so far tonight, despite the fact we have been under the yellow flag for now 5 times. There you see, lights out on the pace car. So it will be on lap 61. We'll go back green. 6 laps remaining. These cautions continue to help everybody in terms of saving enough fuel to get to the conclusion. Number of drivers have been able to mount some comebacks here to get back up to the front. Tim Nofsker got spun from the lead, then got spun trying to merge back onto the racetrack, has made his way back up to the front. Jeremy Jeffries has been involved in a couple of cautions tonight. He restarts in 7th. Robert Breedlove got trapped a lap down due to a little off-sequence pit strategy in the early going of this race. He'll restart in 12th. Donnie Garrett gave up the race lead to come to pit road, started out back and got caught up in a restart wreck. He's now up into the 13th position. And Denny Carroll also got trapped a lap down the early going, was on the same fuel strategy play as Robert Breedlove. He's been able to be the lucky dog, make his way back up in the top 15 in 14th place. Seeing that 712 of Bob Seminara blinking in and out there. We've seen on the occasion this season him fall to the back of the pack due to some connection issues. I mean, hopefully at this point, with him being a playoff driver, they don't force him to fall to the back, but I do know that during the course of this race, he has remained on track the entirety of this race, but I do know that he actually disconnected and reconnected to the TeamSpeak. So I don't know if that has any indication of the connection issue or not, but hopefully the internet hangs on here for this final 6 laps. All right, do we get these final 6 laps under green? We'll have to wait and find out. Last week, it was just a few hundred feet that Josh Metallic had to make to get back to the caution to pick up his first win on the season. Next time by, when we hit the line, we will be at the designated point of no return. And we will stay with the leaders and watch the race back to the caution or the checkered flag, whichever the case may be. We'll look at any subsequent incidents and replays either during the pacing laps, prior to the checkered flag being waved, or after the checkered flag is waved post-race. I don't think it's going to be a lot of room being given here, and look at this lineup on the bottom. Nofsker, McClure, Schilling, and Jeffries. They all work together, but an opportunity to lock yourself into the round of 8 is at stake for all of them. Rawson has fallen out of the top 5 as Greg Palmer, now the highest run of the non-playoff drivers, moves into the 5th position and now swaps up to the top side in front of Brian Rawson. Seminara still there. Shelton up into the top 10 now. Grant Wesley, the regular season champion there with Josh Metallic trying to make their way into the top 10. A lot of your playoff contenders here when it matters the most. I might be wrong, but I thought I heard an idling engine up ahead. Hopefully that is not the case. As this time by, it will be 4 laps remaining. 712 still shimmying a bit there in that outside line. As Nofsker holding the bottom. Oh, big hit into the wall. Donnie Garrett, Jeff Crivello. Caution's going to wave. This is it. This is the race back to the checkers, and they've got about 2/3 of the racetrack to work with. And they're still wrecking on the back straightaway. Graham McDonald, Bernie Mobbs goes around. Greg Palmer leading that outside line. He's alongside of Schilling. Chuck McClure, does he want to go up there to try and make a move on Nofsker? Through the tri-oval, how long does Chuck McClure wait? Still remaining in the tire tracks of the 088. Doesn't look like he's going to make a move. Tim Nofsker is going to bring him to the caution. And barring any mechanical failures right there, Nofsker just picked up his first win of the season. It's going to be a big one because that just advanced him into the round of 8. Came into this race in the 14th seed, tied for 13th in points. And he'll go from P14 to P1 in terms of the newly formed round of 8 point standings, which won't even be official until the checkered flag waves next week at BSR. But that was a wicked hit that both Crivello and Garrett took into the wall up in the entrance of turn 1, and then we had another wreck on the back straightaway coming back here to what was going to be the proverbial checkered flag, the caution at the completion of lap 63, I'm sorry. They're going to have a couple of laps they'll have to make here. Next time by will be 2 laps to go. So that will give us the opportunity right here and now to go back and see what exactly happened. Donnie Garrett, one of our playoff contenders. Looks like he is going to cross the line under his own power. He was 32nd crossing the stripe. He was just breaking into the top 10 here when this occurred. Looks like maybe a little bit of a late bump into the entrance of the corner. Got Crivello loose. He overcorrects it up into Garrett. They both slam the outside wall. No oncoming traffic, so a two-car incident there. Let's get another camera angle of it, and then we'll take a look at what happened on the back straightaway. Watch this shot. That was at 190 miles per hour, folks. Neither driver were out of the throttle. Crivello did not make it back around the stripe. Donnie Garrett did. And then here's a look at what happens on the back straightaway. A few drivers involved here, including Graham McDonald, Bernie Mobbs, Glenn Harris, Greg Lovell as well. Hard to tell from that angle how it all starts. Look at Rodney Sullins avoid. Graham McDonald down to the inside wall. Ulysses Sandoval comes to a stop on the back straightaway, and it looked like he may have actually parked his car. See if we can get another shot of what went down there. It looked like they were almost looking 4 wide. Bernie Mobbs there in the middle line. Ulysses trying to squeeze up between him and Graham McDonald. Oh, and then Ulysses gets hit by the 111 of Ron Hagelin, who then gets the pole sitter Mike Mangialardi. When a wreck occurs, drivers see points in front of them. And watch Rodney Sullins in the 38. When the wreck happens on the back straightaway, he's in the process here of avoiding the wreck with Donnie Garrett and Jeff Crivello, but then watch what happens here on the backstretch. Turn that car as low as it would go to avoid them all. Rodney was in 26th the last time he crossed the stripe. He picked up 7 spots right there to finish out this race unofficially in the 19th position. White flag was just displayed over the hood of one Tim Nofsker. And he is 1 lap away from picking up his first win on the season. Made his way into the playoffs through consistency. Pointed his way into the top 12. And now he's going to be the first driver to officially lock himself into the round of 8. Hayes O'Keefe in our chat. Shout out to Robert Breedlove starting dead last and jumping to 12th place. Looks like he will unofficially finish in 15th. But Robert had an adventurous day here for sure after starting out back. Had to take the wave around at one point, being off sequence with pit strategy in the early going. Take a look at the playoff contenders we've got here. I mentioned about the fact the points were going to be really close heading into the elimination race. That's why we saw some of those drivers give up track position for the lap-led bonus points, like Donnie Garrett did it. Tim Nofsker did it. I'm sorry, correction, Jeremy Jeffries did it. Terry Bombard as well. I think Grant Wesley actually did it also. Nofsker, McClure, Schilling, all playoff contenders sweeping the podium. Jeremy Jeffries 5th. Brian Rawson 6th. Seminara 7th. Shelton 8th, Wesley 9th, Metallic 10th. The only non-playoff driver to finish in the top 10 here in tonight's playoff opener was Greg Palmer, and he finished in 4th position. The other 9 positions, all playoff contenders, and that's 9 of 14 playoff drivers. Well, Tim Nofsker brings it down here to the start-finish line. Win number 1 of the season is an automatic golden ticket into the round of 8. He will advance into the playoffs next round, and he can head into next week's race at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway completely worry-free. He could do a little bit of experimentation. I mentioned about the fact that everything's going to be happening at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. He can be a little bit more aggressive with his strategy, with the lines he chooses. Maybe try and squirrel something away for if he's in a must-win situation in 3 weeks' time, or has the championship hanging in the balance in 5 weeks' time. Well, he should have enough fuel for a burnout here. Those late race yellows allowing drivers to be able to save fuel. And Nofsker actually broke the streak. Remember I mentioned mid-race that no driver that led the most laps in a race so far this season went on to win? Nofsker led a race-high 18 laps and goes on to take the checkered flag. First driver to do so in Season 62. We mentioned about the drivers, the playoff drivers with good runs tonight. There were a handful who did not have good runs, and we'll be heading into the elimination race next week below the cut line. We'll be talking about them in a moment as we will look at our full finishing results. But first, the celebration for Tim Nofsker here at the start-finish line. His first win of the season, becomes the 8th different winner to go to victory lane this year. And again, I keep reiterating it, but it is the most important talking point of the night. He is the first driver to advance into the next round of the playoffs. Nofsker will be in the round of 8. And we may get a full tri-oval burnout. This is reminiscent of a Brian Schilling celebration. Now, if I remember correctly, Brian took a detour at the RTG logo in the infield. Let's see if Nofsker goes all the way or if he takes the same detour. Well, I know he's got the fuel for the burnout. Is he going to have enough tire? Is he going to have enough rubber? He's trying to make it. How far is he going to go? Is he going to go all the way to pit road entry? Let's see him do a full lap. Has a driver ever done a full lap burnout at a super speedway? I'm sure it's been done at short tracks, like a Bristol or a Martinsville especially. I wonder if anybody's ever done a full length burnout at a super speedway. Oh. He's trying to get it down there into neutral, get those tires spinning. I think he's still burning out. I can hear the engine revving, but the tires aren't gripping now, producing any smoke. Maybe that's where the rubber gave up. Maybe the rubber's gone. Well, Nofsker will bring it down to celebrate with his crew. Nofsker started out back here tonight, 31st off the grid. Here you can see he had a very early pit stall. I was able to work his way up to the front. Remember, he got spun from the lead, battled his way back up. We'll be talking to him about that during the FRM post-race wind down in just a moment. But here is a look at your finishing results from this evening. We ran you down through the top 10, all playoff contenders with the exception of Greg Palmer in 4th. So the points were close coming in. They're going to be just as close, if not maybe closer, going out into our first elimination race. Hank Middleton, Randy Waugh in 11th and 12th. Another playoff contender in Denny Carroll, who had a comeback finish of 13th. John Godfrey, Robert Breedlove complete the top 15. Kelly Causey was 16th. Billy Elliser in 17th. Bob Dixon, Rodney Sullins, Greg Lovell, your top 20. Wiley Coate in 21st. Terry Bombard. That caution helped him to catch up to the back of the pack. I think he restarted 31st or 32nd, finished in 22nd, so he gained about, 10 spots right there with that caution, getting caught back up to the field. But I think he is going to be one of those drivers below the cut line heading next week. Joe DeSpirito may be another after he was nursing home a pretty wounded race car after his flip on the front straightaway. He gets 23rd. Keith Bynum was 24th. Pulsator Mike Mangialardi 25th. Then Cy Jones 26th, 27th Ron Hagelin, Bernie Mobbs in 28th place. 29th was Bobby Farrell, Glenn Harris 30th, Graham McDonald 31st. Donnie Garrett was the last driver to finish the race, and that was in the 32nd position. Fortunately, that car was still under power for him to cross the line despite the hard lick he took into the outside wall over in turn 1. Donnie Garrett, you would have to assume, with that low finish, would also be another of the drivers down below the cut line heading into next week. I'll try and, if we don't get the points updated here, I'll try and give you a ballpark figure of who those 6 drivers below the cut line potentially could be. Drivers did not reach the conclusion: Jeff Crivello 33rd, Ulysses Sandoval 34th, Mark Paglia, Brian Lovell, mechanical failures put them behind the wall in 35th and 36th, and Tom Dixon rounded out the field in the 37th position. As we head into our FRN post-race wind down, let's see if we can go downstairs and talk to our podium finishers, all 3 of them playoff contenders. One's advancing to the round of 8, the other 2 going to be in pretty good positioning to maybe point their way into the round of 8, at least here tonight. We could see one of the 2 of them in victory lane next week. Let's see if we can dial up the driver brings it home in the 3rd position this evening. That would be Brian Schilling.
User was moved
Hey,
to
Brian,
your
Seth
channel.
up here in the FRN booth. You got me?
Yep.
Good start to the playoffs for you, bringing it home in the 3rd position. Came into this race pretty sizable gap to the cut line after finishing high in the regular season standings. What was the goal here tonight, and did you meet that? Were you looking just for the top 5? Were you treating this as a must-win situation to have the automatic lock-in and not have to worry about next week? How do you feel as far as your footing here in preparation for next week's elimination race?
I think I did exactly what I wanted to. Top 5, top 10. I was talking to Grant pre-race, and it's like I'm good with that. I got a decent enough cushion in points, so yeah, I did exactly what I wanted to do.
A lot of gamesmanship there around the 20 lap to go mark. A lot of drivers coming to pit road, some kind of fading they were coming to pit road, some late dives at the 1 to green, but it ultimately came down to the late race restarts. Now, we ended up having a race last week end with basically only a couple hundred feet from the timing of the caution flying to getting to the eventual start-finish line checkered flag. Here tonight, we end up getting that final restart just 1 lap outside of the point of no return. Caution comes out. You guys had a lot more space to work with. I think it was turn 2 onward you guys had to work with there. Did you have any thoughts about stepping out to advance the position, or were you pretty much committed to holding that inside line and trying to at least bring it home in the podium finish, if not just at least inside of the top 5?
I was not moving off the bumper of the 17. Him, Tim, we help each other out so many times. I've owed both of them numerous times. They pushed me to wins. I'd never, unless they yelled at me to do it, and even then, I probably wouldn't do it. They're just, they've always got my back. So obviously, I'm returning the favor 100% when I can.
So looking here with Tim advancing in via the win, he's right now in the 8th position. So really you're looking back to the driver 9th in points. Looks like the gap's going to be 32 points. You're at the top of the board right now as far as the standings are concerned. So with that kind of a gap, does it give you a little bit more freedom for next week? Because I talked about the fact that Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway is where everything's happening here this season. It's where the playoffs was put together last week. It's the elimination races. Ultimately, when the checkered flag waves in a little over a month's time, we're crowning ourselves a champion. So do you maybe do some experimentation next week? Do you just look for another solid top 5? Or do you look for your first checkered flag of the season?
Probably just try to get a top 5, top 10 again. You can never go wrong with points. It's so hard to win a race with the guys that are in this. It's just I've gotten to the point of just being able to take what I can get, and if I'm in the right spot and get a win, great. If not, I'm not gonna do something crazy and jeopardize a very solid night.
Well, you said it can never go wrong with points. Brian was another driver who started out back, rolled off the grid from 26th, and brings it home with a solid podium finish to kick off this first round of the playoffs. Congratulations on the great run here tonight, Brian. Got a nice cushion for yourself here to more than likely handily advance yourself into the round of 8 next week. Before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
All right. Thank you to everybody that put donations towards having this broadcast this season. The Dixons, Rodney Solon's Paint, 260 Motorsports, Jason, Timmy Nosker, Ultimate Garage Floors with Donnie Garrett. Apologize if I'm forgetting somebody, but just as usual, thank you for everybody coming out. All the work the admins do. It's amazing what how this has continued for as many years as it has, just by all the hard work everybody puts in and everybody showing up.
Well, Brian Schilling, third place here tonight, your new points leader heading into next week and looking to advance his way into the round of 8 when the checker flag waves a week from tonight. Congratulations on the great start to your playoffs here, Brian, and best of luck next week.
Thank you.
User was moved out of
You
your
heard Brian
channel.
say points are very important. We ended up having a driver win a championship 2 seasons ago. It was Richard Martin. Didn't win a single race that season. Pointed his way to the playoffs. So even top fives and top tens, very important. Even though everybody wants that checkered flag, it can be done. Let's say we talk with another driver who is still hunting his first checkered flag of the season. He finishes runner up here tonight. Let's dial up Chuck McClure.
User was
Hey
moved to
Chuck, it's
your
Seth up here in
channel.
the FRM booth. You got me?
Hey Seth, how you doing?
Doing good. Saw you out in front there, midway portion of this race. Had a shot to win this thing. Now, it looked like you had about, what, 2/3 of a racetrack there when the time the caution came out to be able to come back around. There was a lane up there to the top side coming out of turn 4. How much did you think about maybe going up there? Because you and the 088, kind of similar situations. You both point your way into playoffs and you're both still searching for your first checkered flag of the season. Also, there's an automatic lock into the round of 8 on the line.
Yeah, well, if he wasn't a teammate, I would have done it, but I had the four behind us, me and the 088, and we kind of just work together. It'll work out. They'll push me at a later time.
Now, the second place performance here tonight, based off of the calculations, it currently has you 6th in the point standings, but more importantly, 16 points ahead of that 8th in the standings cut line. How do you feel about that? Are you comfortable with that kind of a gap? Do you wish it was a little more? What's the thought process heading into the elimination race next week at BSR?
I'm not comfortable with that at all. It doesn't take long to lose a bunch of points here, so yeah, I'm just gonna have to have a decent race next week to move on.
Now, a lot of drivers, obviously, when they start out the season, they have different agendas, and obviously for you 14 playoff drivers, probably some different agendas here in the approach to this first round. Which track did you put maybe the most emphasis on? Was it here tonight, or are you putting more emphasis on next week's elimination race? And I'm talking about this pre-race, because obviously now this race is in the books.
Probably this track. For whatever reason, I've had bad luck at Talladega this year, but have a little bit more of a cushion than I thought I would next week. But yeah, this week was the one that I was a little worried.
Now, obviously, we saw this race come down to late race cautions, but we ended up seeing during one of our FRN race breaks around that 20 lap to go mark, a lot of drivers either staying out or some drivers like yourself diving onto pit road at that 1 to green. I mean, at that point in time, did you think that was going to be the move that ultimately was going to decide this race, or were you planning on maybe some other yellows coming out?
Well, I saw all the people that stayed out, and I'm thinking, oh no. But the four and I teamed up, and he had some guys behind him, and we decided we was going to go to the high line. Then it started getting blocked, and for whatever reason, again, they decided to move out of our way, and we took off.
Definitely made it work. Got yourself up there into the top 3 and hung on for that runner-up finish here tonight. Good way to start out the playoffs. Some good momentum heading into that elimination race as well. Congratulations on the job. Well done, Chuck. Before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Well, the sponsor and the thank you goes to Race LM for giving us a place to race and letting me put their decals on my car. Sean Prime, Bones, Josh, Tim, Jeremy, Brian Schilling, all the admins here. Rodney, thanks for the paint. Yeah, I mean it's none of this happens without all those people, and I'm very appreciative. I want to say hi to my family and friends and everybody at Marshall County Schools watching me race. It was a fun night.
Chuck McClure, he's your runner-up finisher here tonight in the playoff opener at Talladega. He'll look to advance his way into the round of 8 next week in the first elimination race at Burt Screwdriver's Raceway. Best of luck there, Chuck. Congrats on the great run here tonight.
Appreciate it, Seth.
And let's see if we can now
User
go
was
down to
moved out
victory
of your
lane.
channel.
First win of the season and an automatic lock into the next round of the playoffs for Tim Nofsker.
User was moved
Tim,
to
Seth
your
up here in the
channel.
FRM booth. You got me?
I do, sir.
All right, so we're going to get to all the stuff here at the end of the race in just a moment. I want to rewind back to a pivotal point in this race. You're out in front showing the way. You get hooked off the bumper of the 77. You're through the grass. You save it. You get spun out of the tri-oval. I think the big question that I wanted to ask you after you took that checkered flag is how did you get back up to the front? Because that was an adventure.
So after all that, I looked at my F9. I saw it said, yes, you have damage. I'm like, oh, crap. So I pulled around. I did my pit stop, and they literally tinked it one time and sent me off. So I lucked out there huge because that could have went any one of 100 different ways. So, and then I knew I had to be aggressive. So when everybody else was topping off, I took a splash and then stayed out a little short, and the cautions kind of fell my way, and I was able to get back up in it. So, and I really didn't have any loss of speed, so I was very lucky tonight.
Kind of a bit of an indication of what your season's been like as well, up and down. You've had finishes up inside of the top 12, but then you've also had a number of finishes outside of the top 20. Came into this race with the playoff grid put together in the final seed, tied for 13th, but technically 14th out of the 14 drivers. Still searching for your first checkered flag of the season. What a big one to be able to get, because now you go into next week worry-free. You know that you're locked into the round of 8. So how big of a weight is that off your shoulders in more ways than one?
Well, it's huge because I had 0 playoff points coming into the round, and those carry over. So when you don't have those playoff points, you are fighting uphill the entire playoffs. So to get that win, plus I'll get some playoff points now that'll carry over into the next round and so on. But, you know, if you can't get any playoff points throughout the regular season and still make the playoffs, you have to fight every ounce of every race.
Yeah, those playoff points, very important. So that kind of leads into my next question. I kind of bounced this idea around during the broadcast. I want to get a word from you personally on this. What do we do next week now at Burnt Screwdriver's Raceway? You mentioned about the playoff points. So do we try and go for another victory, get some more bonus points towards the next round of the playoffs? Or do we do a little bit of experimentation? Because Burnt Screwdriver's Raceway is where everything's happening here this season. It's the elimination race next week. It'll be the elimination race in 2 weeks' time, and then another further 2 weeks from then, it's where the championship is decided. So, do you kind of test the waters, try and see what you can do at that racetrack based on maybe being in maybe a must-win situation when we come back there in 3 weeks' time, or of course as well at the end of the season when a championship is on the line?
Well, actually, our next race is in 2 weeks because of the 4th of July.
Oh, right, yep.
But, you know, I've always run really well at BSR. And, you know, I've just really been kind of snake bit going into the home stretch here where I've been spun or wrecked in the last 4 weeks. And I've been running in the top 5 when that's happened. So it's not for lack of not being up there. It's just, you know, some unfortunate things are happening around me, and it just kind of catches me up. When I go into the next race, I think my main focus is going to be try to help those who have helped me, and still maybe experiment some and see what will work and what won't work. So I think there will be a few different options for what happens, but yeah, I feel like I have some favors to repay.
Well, we could definitely tell the excitement and the relief of picking up this victory here now from the length of the burnout there, almost the entirety of the tri-oval. I don't think you had any rear tires left there, so hopefully you don't have a big tire bill. But Tim, congratulations on the victory here tonight. The automatic lock into the round of 8. Going to be a lot of fun to see what you do in 2 weeks' time when we head to Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway in preparation for the upcoming next round of the playoffs. We'll let you get back to your celebrating in a minute, but first, we're handing the microphone over to you for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Mark Paglia helped me in the middle of the race, and I kind of hung him out, so I should apologize for that. But he's just been snake bit this whole season. He's just had a miserable. So hopefully he can turn his racing around here in the end of the season. And then I've got to thank Chuck McClure and Brian Schilling. The three of us like working together. We kind of have the same mindset. And if it wasn't for those guys, I probably wouldn't have won tonight. They were pushing like crazy to hold that inside line. And unless you get the right guys down there, that inside line will fall back and, fall victim to the middle, usually at TR. So I've got to thank those guys. And then I also have to give a thank you to Rodney Sullins. I asked him to paint this Cale Yarborough throwback for me at the beginning of the season, and I was just hoping at some point throughout the season he did such a great job on it, as he always does, and I wanted to get that into Victory Lane, so I've got to give a shout out to him. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Mr. Brian Rawson. I kind of duped him there racing back, and he's turned his racing around full circle. We used to race at a place called Dega Pro, and that has been like 05, 06, and he got out of it for a long time, and we talked for a long time about him getting back into it, and I've just been tickled pink to see his success this season, and the fact he made the playoffs, and he always sets the bar a little too high for himself, and he's just achieved everything that he could. So I wanted to give him a special shout out. And then I got to give a shout out to Wiley and Josh. Those guys are great to work with, and we have good chemistry as far as an admin team. And I wouldn't want to do it with two other guys for sure. And then also like to thank Bones Prime and Jason Scheck, who normally paints my stuff, but those guys do such a great job keeping everything going here. It's a great place to race, and Josh was telling me a story earlier about some of the drivers and how thankful they were, how good everything goes over here. So, that's not by accident. Everybody does their part, and everybody does such a great job here. And then I'd like to thank you for going solo tonight, and I'm sure the broadcast turned out great, but we love watching these things back, so appreciate you as well. And I think that's it.
A bunch of playoff drivers. They're going to be pretty nervous heading into next week, but Tim Knopfsker will not be one of them. He locks himself into the round of 8 with his first win of the season here tonight at Talladega Superspeedway. Congratulations once again, Tim. Go and enjoy this victory, and enjoy your 4th of July. We'll see you back at it in 2 weeks' time when we head to the first elimination race of the season.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
Tim Knopfsker, the victor here tonight.
Was
8th
moved out of
different
your
driver
channel.
to go to Victory Lane. Well, folks, we're going to just give you a little bit of an overview of the drivers that are below the cut line. We can't give you the mathematics of it right now because, as mentioned, Tim Knopfsker moves up to the 8th position in points, but he's locked into the next round. So technically, 7th in points, Brian Rawson would be the cut line driver. So at this point in time, don't have the math for you of the mathematics of who is however many points below the cut line, but can confirm that the 6 drivers heading into the elimination race in 2 weeks' time are going to be the following: Joe DeSpirito, Josh Metallic, Denny Carroll, Terry Bombard, Donnie Garrett, and Chris Emery, who was not in the field here tonight. So a number of drivers, as I'm looking at it, could potentially be heading into our next race, the elimination race at BSR, in a must-win scenario. Terry Bombard, Donnie Garrett did not have the best of finishes here tonight, did not garner a lot of points, and obviously Emery did not garner a lot of points with his non-start here this evening, so it will be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I gave the wrong information. I told you to join us next week, but obviously we won't be here because the drivers won't be here. Everybody going to be out celebrating the 4th of July. Wish everybody a very happy and safe 4th of July as well. We'll be back here in 2 weeks' time on the Flatout Racing Network to bring you coverage of the first elimination race, playoff race number 2 here of Season 62 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series from Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. Green flag will fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're not going to want to miss it. It's been an incredible regular season. The playoffs have gotten started hot, and I do not think it has any plans of cooling down anytime soon. But thanks, everybody, for tuning to our coverage here tonight. I've been Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.